Welcome to the Business Intercept. I am Kiara Ashanti, your host, and today the purge continues. There's no other way to put it. We are completely engaged in full on what I would like to think of as economic and business terrorism. And it's coming from the left. It's coming from people who want to virtue signal. And it's going to be a huge problem. So we're going to talk about a few things tonight. This first clip is going to be dedicated primarily to a story I saw on Twitter to kind of give you a little context on a couple of things. But first, an update. So we know, as reported by so many people a couple of days ago, over the weekend, Parler was, of course, kicked off the internet essentially by Amazon. They won't carry them on their servers anymore. Of course, you can't download the app on Google or on Apple. So this was a coordinated business attack on Parler. You got to understand that they are a separate business and really they're a product in the marketplace. And so what these tech companies have decided to do is that they don't like that people can leave Twitter and go to Parler, and they're using their terms of service as a cover for getting rid of them. And of course, a lot of people say that they can do this because they're a private business. As I discussed in my last video, that's not actually the case. And I'm going to get into that a little bit more specifically in the next video, which is really going to be talking about what do conservatives do next? What are the lessons that need to be learned right now for conservatives, conservative commentators, and conservative businesses? Okay, so in the wake of that, though, this is what we have happening now with Parler. So Parler is suing Amazon for suspending the app from their cloud service. Claims antitrust violation and breach of contract. And that's exactly right. What you have to understand with Amazon is they have a terms of service, but there are certain protocols that they're supposed to follow, number one. And number two, they're not supposed to work in coordination or even look like they're working in coordination. It's exactly what antitrust laws were designed for. Most often when these types of breaches happen, it doesn't even go to a jury. Usually, it's pretty obvious. A judge will just make the decision. So as I said in my last video about how these tech companies were shooting themselves in the foot, this is an example of that. Okay, this was pretty easy to predict that this was going to happen. So this was the statement from the CEO. AWS's, which is Amazon Web Services, decision to effectively terminate Parler's account is apparently motivated by political animus. Parler claims in its filing AWS is violating Section 1 of the Sherman Antitrust Act in combination with defendant Twitter. AWS is also breaching its own contract with Parler, which requires AWS to provide Parler with a 30-day notice before terminating service, rather than the less than 34-hour notice AWS actually provided. Finally, AWS is committing intentional interference with prospective economic advantage, given the millions of users expected to sign on in the near future. And again, that's also right, because as we know, these people are going to leave Twitter and go someplace. That someplace would be Parler. So Amazon is interfering in all that. That's the bottom line. They are. Now, here's the other thing, and they go into a little bit more details about what Parler does. Amazon does. Basically, what a lot of people have done. Let me kind of back up a little bit here. What Amazon, what Apple, what Microsoft, and just about any other hosting company that sells cloud services, what they're actually have gone out and they've used their money and expertise to go out and create server farms, okay? And then you can rent the server space. So think of it like real estate, right? Somebody goes out and they build a commercial building, Okay. And then you, as a storefront, can come in and rent a space in that strip mall, in that commercial building to run your business. Okay. And as long as you don't do anything illegal, you have every right to continue in that space. When they say cloud services for to back up things or to run a business, that's all they're doing. Most of these web services, whether it's WordPress, these cloud services through places like even GoDaddy, a lot of these, for instance, the Shopify, a lot of them are using servers that are rented out to them. They haven't gone out and created their own building or their own servers themselves, okay? Because it's a lot of money. So what Amazon has done is said, look, your users are violating our terms of service. What specific ones they haven't answered. And so by taking down the cloud server from them, they've essentially kicked them out of the commercial building. Now, that just happened all at once in conjunction with everything else is too suspicious for it not to have a huge look of collusion between companies, specifically Twitter. So Amazon's going to have a little bit of an issue here. Not only that, but by doing it in 36 hours versus the 30 days, that's also a check against Amazon. Here's the other thing to keep in mind, and with Biden coming into office, I don't think that this is something that they would look into, obviously, because he doesn't care and the Democrats don't care. They're happy about all this. But you have to understand something. Amazon actually has a contract with the U.S. government. Okay? I think it's either with the CIA, FBI, one of or maybe it might be the Department of Defense. But one of the large departments is using the servers and cloud space that Amazon is providing. There was a number of stories about this, how Amazon went out, made the bid, won the bid, and some people thought that was good, some people thought that was bad. Either way, it's really neither here nor there. The important point is every governmental contractor is required to follow the same anti-discrimination laws and business laws as the government itself. It's as if you are a part of the government. Okay, so if I have my private business and I can, to a certain degree, do what I want as long as I'm not violating certain general laws, but I can do a lot more or decide not to do a lot more than the government office does. Because a lot of the things that are in the Constitution are written specifically to curtail and control government specifically. Well, when you sign on as a contractor with the government, you are held to that same standard. Again, as if you're an employee and an extension of that governmental body. So that means all of the First Amendment rules, all of the business rules, all of the non-discrimination rules that apply to government applies to Amazon. You can't discriminate. And discrimination, according to political sides, is also a form of discrimination. Anybody using the service or using Amazon also has to have equal protection under the law like anybody else, as if Amazon was part of the government. So honestly, if Trump really wanted to, he could just say we're canceling out the Amazon contract per them violating certain laws. They could do that. Now, I don't know if Trump was really in the mood to do that, but if I was him, I certainly would. Go out in a ball of glory. Okay, so that's kind of what's happening on the front for Parler. Okay, so again, that's just kind of like an update. What we're going to do now is kind of move into the story that I saw earlier from, I saw it on Twitter. and it was put out by the Federalist. So I'm just going to try to find my thing here. Yep. Let me just pull this up. And so basically, this was on thefederalist.com, and I got it from Twitter. The biggest gun forum on the planet was just kicked off the internet without explanation. So this is a website called ar15.com, which I guess just based on the name, we should have been not surprised that this was going to occur at some point. Okay, so the biggest gun forum on the planet was just kicked off the internet without explanation. ARF.com is down. We've been booted from GoDaddy and are looking for an alternative solution, the site announced Monday afternoon on Twitter. Okay, the swift termination by the internet host GoDaddy forced AR15.com's leadership to think on their feet and quickly create a temporary URL so freedom lovers and firearm enthusiasts could continue to access the information and resources on the site. Instead of offering any specifics about kicking the gun site off the internet, GoDaddy merely claimed that AR-15 violated its terms of service, which resulted in instant termination. On Monday, January, all right, they're just going to go through how they violated the service. Well, this is an actual statement, so I'm going to read this. On Monday, January 11th, 2021, I received notice from our site registrar that AR-15 had violated their terms of service and that AR-15.com would be shut down immediately. President and co-founder of the gun site, Juan Alavia, told the Federalist in a statement. Okay. When asked by the Federalist about the decision to remove AR-15.com, GoDaddy claimed that the site both promotes and encourages violence, but did not offer any specific examples. Instead, they offered AR-15.com 24 hours to relocate its business. And of course, this follows a series of, people being deplatformed, taken off the internet because of politics. So what is AR-15? I mean, specifically, as you bring up this, if you take a look at the site, it's obviously a site for gun enthusiasts. So they've probably got articles, reviews. They have a forum where people can post, argue, debate, talk about whatever. So you have to imagine that most of the people who are members of the site are Trump supporters. You also have to imagine that most of the people, or there are some people rather, in the forums that believe that Trump didn't really lose the election and that it was stolen from him. And not only that, but you have to believe that if you are a left-leaning person who's not a big fan of guns, then at some point, somewhere on a guns website, there's going to be something that you can construe as violent, even if it isn't really violent. I mean, after all, PETA thinks any discussion about hunting for animals is violent. So there you go. Now, I reached out to GoDaddy as well because I had a couple of questions, of course, right? And so the question that I sent them was just basically, I'd like to ask some questions, get some clarification on the situation. I was, Dan Race, who is one of the PR people at GoDaddy, reached back out to me, which I have to say is better than some sites. I mean, remember a couple videos ago when I was discussing A Properties and Goosehead Insurance and how they had fired employees without really knowing whether or not those employees had been part of the people who went into the actual Capitol. They didn't respond to my questions, my phone calls at all. So the fact that GoDaddy actually decided to send me an email in response to my inquiries gives them, let's give them that at least. And this is the response that I was given, the first response at least. In response to content complaints on the AR-15 website, our team investigated and discovered content on the site that both promoted and encouraged violence. They were given the opportunity to remove the content. As such, they are in violation of our terms of service, and we asked them to move the domain to another registrar. Now, let's kind of dissect that first, statement, because if you take them at the word, right, and there's 2 or 3 different things that could actually be going on right now, but the first possibility is we take them at the word that there was a violation on the website that was promoting violence in an extreme way, and as a result of that, they took action. Okay, so let's say that they're being truthful on their side about that. That does kind of jive differently from the statement that the president of the website said, because he says they weren't given any reason, whereas GoDaddy is saying they were given the content. Now, somebody's, I think, not being truthful here. Whether it's the website or whether it's a GoDaddy, I don't know. I do think with everything that's going on, you have to kind of throw a little bit more shade at GoDaddy, because this is a gun site. For example, if you go into a forum and they're talking about the best type of gun for home defense, or the best type of gun for a female to carry, which inevitably leads to the type of threats that a woman might encounter on college, walking down the street, at home. There may be somebody that says if somebody tries to attack a woman physically, that person deserves to be taken down by a firearm. If you don't like guns, you can object to that and say that that's promoting violence, even though it's really not. Okay? Now, if someone goes on the forum and says we should bear arms and keep the election from getting stolen, that would be across the line. That would be promoting direct violent acts for political reasons. That's literally the definition of terrorism. So if it was something like that, then what GoDaddy did makes sense. I suspect, however, that it isn't something like that. And a reason I say that is because if it was that blatant, they wouldn't have any problem telling the website. In fact, they wouldn't have any problem telling the world as a way to justify their actions. Okay? So while I appreciated Dan's statement to me, even though it's kind of a milquetoast, bland, typical corporate statement, I had the following follow-up question for them. And this is what I wrote in response. Thank you for the comment. I do have one follow-up question that seems to be pertinent surrounding all of this, especially when dealing with forums. Has GoDaddy taken or is thinking about taking similar actions against any websites using your services that are affiliated with Black Lives Matter or its offshoot groups? The response I got back from Dan on that was, Kiara, we take all complaints about content on websites very seriously, and we have a team dedicated to investigating each complaint we receive. As has been our position for over a decade, if at any time someone believes a website may be operating in violation of our terms of service, we ask that they visit this particular link to submit a report. So what are we to think about that statement? Because it could be a couple different things. The most obvious thing is, look, the practice of liberals, leftists, many of whom are at home without jobs and don't have anything better to do with their lives, trying to gotcha a website or a speaker or a commentator by looking at old tweets, looking at old blog posts, or searching through a forum that probably by now has hundreds of thousands, if not millions of comments on AR15.com to find one single objectionable comment or article, either actually objectionable or in their view objectionable, it's a common practice. We see people do this all the time. Okay, so it's quite possible that somebody did in fact start looking around the forum, trying to find comments or posts about what happened at the Capitol last week, or in other instances as it pertains to the election, and found something that they found objectionable or could be thought of as objectionable. That is entirely possible. However, here's the primary question, and like I do with all articles that I write as a freelance journalist, and what I will do with all videos that I make on this channel, I am going to send the video and the link with a timestamp to any of the companies, any of the individuals that I discuss, so that they have the opportunity to, if they so choose, read or in this case view what I've said about the company and respond in case I've got something incorrect, in case they have further clarification that they want to give me and therefore you, the viewing public. I always want to give them that ability and that chance because, look, I've worked for a lot of different large Fortune 500 corporations. And whenever anything breaks big in the news, particularly if it pertains specifically to the company in question, there's always an internal memo that goes out with sanitized language about how they want us to respond or answer any inquiries about the subject matter. And of course, legal for big companies have had this discussion. You can bet that when they decided to do this, they probably had a discussion with their legal counsel as well as to what kind of blowback might be on and the best way to address any press inquiries. And again, it's always going to be sanitized. They're not interested in getting into a debate, or certainly, generally not speaking, not interested in getting into live interviews in which an answer, or rather a question, can be asked that they don't want to be surprised about. So it's always a guessing game, I guess is what I'm saying, as to what their true motivations are and what's going on behind the scenes. Okay, so you have to take everything they say with a grain of salt, but you also have to kind of also give them, in some areas, of the benefit of the doubt in lieu of further evidence. And so for GoDaddy and for the gentleman that I emailed today, here's the question. If this is your policy, has it been used for any other groups that got either their hosting from you or bought their domain from you? Okay? And by that I mean, let's talk about the most obvious one. Black Lives Matter. There is no doubt in my mind that there is a website that is either affiliated with Black Lives Matter, might have been Black Lives Matter itself, or is a supporter of Black Lives Matter. Could be a major news site, could be a blog post, could be a forum, could be any number of things, but they exist. And so there are objectionable comments on that website against white people, against cops, against Trump, against conservatives, and we can guarantee that a lot of those comments are hateful, violent, or threatening violence of some sort. We know that because it's the internet, and this is what you find on the internet. Every side has their kooks, every side has their loudmouths, and so there's no doubt that the left has theirs too. Has GoDaddy done this to any other websites? Okay, I'm going to put the link that was in the email down below. Here's an experiment. Find a website, forum, blog, whatever the case may be, that is registered through GoDaddy. Find something that's objectionable. Send them the link. Post it in one of the links. See what GoDaddy does. Okay? And take it from there. Also, what you can do, and I did this earlier, is I went into Google, put in GoDaddy and Black Lives Matter, just to see if there was any, what came up, right? Because the question becomes, again, are these rules being applied equally? Are they being applied fairly? If GoDaddy says we do not allow objectionable content, violent content, or promoting violence on, and think about this. What AR-15 did really was they bought the web domain from GoDaddy. So I don't even know if they're on GoDaddy's servers, really. Maybe they're both got the domain and they're running their website on there. If it is, then they have a little bit more space, but that was not clear in the article itself. My point is, if you do a Google here, though, first thing that comes up is GoDaddy had a Black Lives Matter roundtable. So they decided to get together with a filmmaker, Casual Films, and have a roundtable discussion with regard to Black Lives Matter. I wonder if they would do the same thing with what happened at the Capitol. Have a roundtable discussion with Trump voters. I don't know. Let's see. Have they donated any money to Black Lives Matter? Okay. A lot of companies have. And let's see. I don't see anything that comes up right away, but it might take a little digging. But nonetheless. Oh, and look at this. BlackLivesMatterLakeCounty.com. This is a website that was opened and is perhaps registered with GoDaddy. You can tell that. I can tell by looking at some of the email names here on this. So you just go to the site here, and you can tell that it's powered by GoDaddy Website Builder. So if I was to look at anything on this website, their programs, their projects, and object to it, what would GoDaddy do? If they're consistent, then GoDaddy, you should be getting rid of this website perhaps, or others like it. Now, here's the truth of the situation here, and this is kind of a preview for my next video, because we're going to talk about in the next video exactly what Republicans and conservatives are going to have to do. There are some lessons here. They're hard lessons, but to kind of give you a preview, conservatives generally do not, as a matter of principle, spend their time searching for gotcha questions, gotcha content on different leftist websites. We just don't. We don't spend a lot of time doing that. Okay? We don't spend a lot of time reporting people on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, I think most conservatives wouldn't even think to go to the actual domain registrar and complain to them about some sort of website that they're looking at that they don't like what the people are saying. It's not something we would do. But it seems to me that it's something that conservatives are going to have to start doing. Seriously. When you're in a war, when you're in a battle, the idea that you can't fight or you shouldn't fight the way that your opposition does at some point becomes naive. And at some further point goes past naivete into stupidity. Because you're not able to compete. And these people are more than happy to use a mob mentality and a cancel culture in order to restrict your ability to put out a message that you want or to find information about the subject matter that you want. They're essentially interfering with informational content on the web. That's exactly what GoDaddy is doing, whether they realize it or not. Okay? And the question going forward is going to be, can conservatives make them either via money, political pressure, start or exerting their own social pressure, or economic pressure by taking their services elsewhere, force these companies into at least applying the same rules in the same manner to those on the left. Okay, that's going to do it for this particular report. As I said, I'm going to send this over to GoDaddy primarily because I want to see if they want to make a comment with regard to whether or not they've had any similar actions taken against any leftist or liberal websites that got their domain through them. In the meantime, you've got to begin supporting non-traditional news sources, conservative news sources, conservative commentators. And look, while I lean conservative, this channel isn't really meant to be a mouthpiece or a forum for conservative ideas per se. The Business Intercept is really a channel I'm putting together to talk about business. Unfortunately, because of not only this particular president, but the time period that we're living in, business and politics are intersecting on an ongoing basis. And so some of the content is going to have to touch on that. So what I suggest you do is please subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, so that when I make new videos, you are notified about that, because as we do more and more of this type of commentary, particularly over the next 5-6 weeks, I'd imagine, you can bet that YouTube is going to throttle a lot of these videos, whether it's me, Tim Pool, many others. And the only way to combat that is if you subscribe to the channel and hit the notification so that you know automatically when new content has been created and uploaded to the channel.